My friend, let's call him Daniel, comes to visit me and my brother in Arizona. Plans to be out here for like a week. Decides that we should do like 2 nights of camping. Decide to camp at Rustler Park Campground in the Chiricahua Mountains. We know the mountain range is one of the 2 missing 411 hotspots in Arizona. Go anyway thinking, what's the worst that could happen? The day comes where he lands at the airport. Me and my brother pick him up, and we head out to the highway with all of our supplies that we had packed up before arriving at the airport. Spend some time driving down the highway. Eventually take the highway exit that the GPS tells me to. Follow the road for an hour or so. Road eventually leads to the first foothills off the chain, and we begin ascending. Road turns into a dirt road quite quickly. Not the best conditions for my minivan, which worries me a little. As we ascend, we can see people along the way in different campsites. I wonder why they don't camp higher up. Spend like an hour or so driving upwards on this winding dirt road where there is always a cliff to my left. It's still around 3:04, so I am not too worried about nightfall. Eventually, we make it, and I see the campground sign. We pass the sign, and I start assessing the campground. Only one person, guy camping in his trailer behind his truck, in the whole campground that could fit at least 50 people. Think that's odd since it's a Friday afternoon. Well, maybe since Memorial Day weekend is coming up, people are gonna come next weekend. Notice a building marked guard shack, but no car anywhere near it. Alright, I guess it's just my group and this other guy in this campground. We drive past him and wave, and he waves back. Seems normal, so think nothing of it. We decided on a spot further up the road and around the hill, behind the trailer guy, so that we were out of his sight. We set up camp and get to cooking. Everything is cool except the fact that it's extremely windy, like the strongest wind I've ever encountered in my entire life. I conclude that it just must be like that in this area. After all, the campground's elevation is like 9,000 feet. The wind makes the cooking really difficult, so we just settle on snacks for the night. Spend the rest of the night chilling and smoking, and just catching up on stuff. Eventually go to bed. Wind makes it kinda hard to sleep that night, but I manage, given how crazy it was. We wake up the next day and start to cook breakfast, but it was still pretty damn windy, so it made cooking difficult, just like last night. Eventually, we make our breakfast burritos and start to talk about the hike we were gonna do. My brother volunteers to stay at camp and watch over everything, since he's not too athletic. Me and Daniel start prepping our backpacks for the hike. 15 minutes before we head out, a car pulls up to us, and it's this boomer guy in his Jeep. He asks us if we know where the trail starts around here. I tell him that maybe the guard at the guard shack knows. He says thanks and drives off. Realize there's probably not even a guard there since no cars around. Whatever, he should be fine. Eventually, we head out for our hike. As we're walking away from our campsite, we decide to head to the guard shack since we think the trailhead may be around there. But then we see the boomer guy all the way down the road near the campground entrance. We wonder what he's doing there, then realize he's found the start of a trail. Figure we should do the same since we want to get started and aren't totally sure if there is a trailhead near the guard shack. Start heading that direction and start hiking the trail. Catch up to the guy and do some small talk. Think he said there's no guard there, but can't quite remember what he said for sure. Say goodbye and hike ahead, since we have a better pace than him. Our goal is to reach what is called Chiricahua Peak. Round trip comes around 8 to 10 miles-ish, can't quite remember. We hike for 2 to 3 hours and everything is cool and pretty normal for a missing 411 hotspot. It's still pretty windy though. At one point the wind gets so strong when we reach this opening in the forest that I actually had to squat down and cover my face, thinking to myself, this wind is nuts. Start to consider if the strength of the wind and its frequency is paranormal. Shrug it off, think to myself, dude, you've been browsing X too much. It's just the wind, and you're on a mountain. Eventually, we get to this 5-way intersection on the trail. Trying to figure out where to go based on the signs, but it's kinda unclear. Notice 100 yards behind us on the trail, next to the one where we came from, is that boomer guy. Me and Daniel are confused, since we were thinking how did he catch up to us so fast. He approaches, and we ask him how he caught up with us. Also, here is a pic of the campground for reference. The car you see in the pic is right next to the campsite we were staying at. In fact, it's right next to where we parked our minivan. And behind the car, almost like 75 yards away, is the guard shack. To the left is where the entrance is. To the right is the direction where the trailer guy is. He tells us how on the trail we took, you can take one of the side trails to reach a dirt service road and use it as a shortcut. Well, makes sense to me. Ask him if he knows how to get to Chiricahua Peak. He says he doesn't know, but he plans to go to Fly Peak, since it is 2 miles closer and basically the same elevation. Talked to Daniel about it, and agrees with me that we should do the same since we were getting kinda tired. Also, I forgot to mention that the entire time, this boomer guy was carrying a monocular on a tripod, which explains why he wants to get to the peak. Probably wants to get some good views or for photography or something. We assess the signs again, which are kinda crooked, but discern which trail leads to Fly Peak. It's a mile away. We tell the boomer guy we'll see him up there and head upwards. Trail gets really steep and wraps around the peak. Eventually we lose sight of the boomer guy behind us and continue on. Make it to the top and are pretty tired. Looking around and see a makeshift fire pit. Further away from where the trail ends, I see a group of boulders. Decide we should go over there and chill, which was a mistake. Maybe we can find a spot that blocks the wind from hitting us. And yes, the wind is still pretty damn strong. It's around 4 at this point. As we approach, I heard a sound all of a sudden, like a mechanical sound. I am confused since I am thinking to myself that nothing in the forest makes a sound like that. Daniel notices I've stopped and I'm looking around. Asks what's up. I asked him if he heard that. He said no. And I look around some more and assess the situation. Everything seems good. Maybe I'm just being nervous. Decide to pull out my oil pen and relax once we find a nice spot amongst the boulders. Once we do, we sit down and are having a good time for about 10 minutes. But then, all of a sudden, as I'm sitting there, my ears pick up a sound, and it's this sound that the whole story revolves around. The sound sounds like several children chattering and laughing amongst one another, but it had this muffled nature to it, like the sounds were underwater. Well, how can that be? There is no water around here. Another thing that's bothering me is the volume of the sound. It's not that loud, but loud enough where I should be able to at least see it. I'm scanning the trees, looking around, and I see nothing. Think I'm just being nervous once again. Maybe it's just the wind making sounds and shrug it off. Also, don't want to sketch out Daniel. Keep puffing on the pen, trying to relax, but there is an issue. The sound is still occurring, and it won't stop. Start thinking to myself, alright, something ain't right here. There is no one else out here beside the boomer guy, Daniel, and I. I know this because from where the campsite is, I can see the entrance of the campground, and no one else has entered besides the boomer guy, and there is no way they hiked up here that fast. Also, the sounds sound like children, so how and why would they be out here? It's like 3 hours to sunset. And that's when I had a realization. I am in a mountain range that is classified as one of the 2 missing 411 hotspots in Arizona. I am literally sitting on a granite boulder, and sunset is near. Realize the sounds may be the Fae observing me and Daniel. Think, oh shit, we should head out of here. Tell Danny that we should head back since sunset is soon. I notice that he has not said anything about the sounds. Think maybe I'm just imagining the sounds. All those greentext must be making me paranoid or something. As we head back towards the trail, I notice that the boomer guy is not up here. Shrug it off, since I just want to get out of there. Daniel takes the lead, and we reach the trail. As we march on, I heard a thud behind me, like a coconut hitting the ground. I am so on edge, I do a 180-degree turn instantly, and look to see if I can catch anything. Nothing at all. Still kinda nervous though. Keep pressing on. We reach the 5-way intersection, and up ahead we see the boomer guy. I guess he never made it up to the peak and quit halfway. We follow the trail he took since it probably leads to that service road he mentioned. Follow the trail, but we had to take a break at one point since we are getting really tired at this point. At this point, we can't see the boomer guy anymore. Continue hiking towards the campground for like 2 miles. Turns out, the service road leads right back to the campground. As we reach the end of the road, we see the boomer guy in his car driving off in the distance. We get back to the campsite and greet my brother. I decide not to say anything about what happened since I don't want to freak anyone out, and at this point, I'm still thinking I may have just been hearing shit. We try to cook some dinner, but the wind is getting even stronger than it ever has been. It's hitting our fire pretty hard and sending embers everywhere. My tent is almost sideways at this point, and our chairs need to have rocks on them or they just get blown away. Can't cook at all since the wind is so crazy. We all decide to just pack everything up and evac out of there, since the wind is just nuts. Spend 20 minutes throwing everything in my minivan and peel out of there. Realize that going down a one-way dirt road in the middle of the night on some random mountain may not be the best idea. Check the map on my phone. Seems like there is another road to the east out of here. Realize that the guy with the truck and the trailer could not have taken the road I took since it was so narrow and had tight turns. Conclude that he must have taken the road to the east and head that way. Spend the next 2 hours slowly driving through a bumpy-ass, unmaintained road in the dead of the night in a fucking minivan. Eventually, we come out to the other side of the mountain chain and have to pass through New Mexico to get back to the highway. 3 hours later, we make it back to my place. We are all pretty tired, so go to bed. The next morning, I am talking to them about the camping trip. I mentioned to my brother how I heard some weird shit on Fly Peak. Daniel butts in and says, "Oh, you heard those sounds too." And I said, "Daniel, didn't you say you heard nothing when I asked you back up there?" Referring to the mechanical sound I heard. And he said he didn't hear that, but something after that. And I asked, "What did you hear?" And he said, "Oh, well, it sounded like children laughing or talking." My mind blue screens. Yo, Daniel, you're not trolling me, are you? He says I'm not, and that he didn't mention it at the time, since he was thinking he was just hearing stuff. I tell him I was hearing the exact same thing, and didn't mention it either for the same reason. Kinda confused and freaked out about this revelation. Well, at least I am. They just shrug it off. Later I do some research on the area. Turns out, there is 4 missing persons cases in that mountain range. Paul Fugate, a park ranger who went missing back in the 80s at the north section of the mountain range, specifically at Chiricahua National Monument. Jerry Hayes, a 5-year-old boy who went missing in 1938 from his parents' hunting camp. His dead body was found 3 miles away near Rucker Canyon. But it's the last 2 missing people's cases that weirded me out the most. Those last 2 cases are of Jeanette Castrejon and Lawrence Cosden. Janet went missing in June of 2015, when she and her family were camping at Rustler Park. Lawrence went missing in September of 2015 at Rustler Park, after he went for a hike with his cat. Thinking to myself, if I knew this information beforehand, I would not have gone camping out there. My face went. I realized me and my friend could have become the next missing 411 case, and be at the mercy of the Fae, or whatever the fuck they are. On June 19th, 2015, Janet Castrejon, 44, vanished from a camping trip in the Chiricahua Mountains in southern Arizona with her parents, Dr. Eduardo and Lydia Castrejon, all of La Cruces. Janet, the oldest of 4 siblings, suffered a traumatic brain injury in a car accident in 1988 when she was 18 years old, causing memory problems and partial blindness. At the time of the crash, she had just completed her first semester at New Mexico State University, where she studied computer science. She remained in a coma for 3 months. During the trip, Janet vanished and was never seen alive again. After 3 years, remains were finally found, which were found to be Janet's. What happened? Lost and died from exposure, snatched by an animal or person. Janet was last seen outside a campground bathroom in Rustler Park. It is a wildflower carpeted meadow high in the Chiricahua Mountains, rimmed with Douglas fir and ponderosa pine. Campsites at Rustler Park are scattered along access roads that have been purposefully kept out of the meadow to avoid damaging the fragile plants and soils. Larger animals, including black bears, are frequently spotted there, and trails lead from the campground to Chiricahua Wilderness and other places of interest. As planned, Janet and her parents left for the park from their Las Cruces home on Thursday, June 18th, 2015. By that evening, the three had arrived in Deming, where they stopped at a church and stayed overnight in their motorhome. The following day, June 19th, they departed for Arizona after eating breakfast at an IHOP. The family arrived at the Rustler Park campground between 1:30 and 2 p.m. When they finished setting up their camp, Eduardo made lunch for his family, consisting of quesadillas, beans, and rice around 4 p.m. About an hour later after their meal, Lydia, who speaks mostly Spanish, said she wanted to go for a walk and asked Janet to join her. She initially declined, but Eduardo told her to go to the pay station to take the payment, and Janet agreed. She and her mother then walked about 1,000 feet from their motorhome down a curved path to the pay station, where Janet deposited the payment envelope. About 300 feet away from the pay station, Lydia decided to go to the bathroom, and Janet waited outside. When her mother came out of the bathroom, she was nowhere to be seen. She thought that Janet must have decided to head back to Eduardo. Lydia estimated that she was in the bathroom only for a few minutes, and soon became worried when she returned to the motorhome and discovered Janet was not there. Eduardo said, "My wife ran up to our camping spot to see if she had made it back up here, but I was here and never saw her. She never got back. We immediately started searching for her, asking other campers. On her way over there, she just disappeared." Janet was 5'3" tall and 250 pounds. She was last seen wearing a white t-shirt with black lettering, blue jeans, and white tennis shoes with a red stripe on them. No footprints were leading off the main path, the family said. There were no signs of a struggle to suggest that Janet had been attacked or had attempted to fight off an attacker, and there were no screams or cries for help. By 8 p.m., Janet's brother Oscar arrived and called 911 to report his missing sister. But help, he said, did not arrive until after midnight on Saturday, June 20th. A search and rescue team with Cochise County Sheriff's Office began searching for Janet at around 12:30 a.m., and the team searched until 6 a.m. and resumed around 9 a.m. A search helicopter was dispatched later that day, but was unsuccessful in finding any signs of Janet. The search continued well into Sunday and over the next few days, but there was no sign of Janet, or evidence of any clothing or any blood, which may have indicated a bear attack. Search and rescue teams on foot and with sniffer dogs thoroughly searched the area around Rustler Park campground, but Janet was never seen again. The family were convinced Janet was abducted. Fabian Castrejon, Janet's other brother, said, "There wasn't enough effort to begin with," referring to the search efforts by the Cochise County Sheriff's Office. Soon after Janet disappeared, Fabian said a search team from New Mexico offered to assist the Cochise County authorities, but was rejected. Fabian took on a lead role in the search efforts, often finding tips and leads for the detectives assigned to the case. He spent about 3 weeks searching for Janet immediately after her disappearance and helped organize extensive search parties. He and his sister, Xochitl Castrejon, regularly searched the area until the park closed for the season in late October. Oscar, meanwhile, believes the search was hindered mainly because authorities did not take into consideration Janet's disabilities. "They assumed too quickly that she was competent," he said. "They told us that she either left with someone or ran away. We told them specifically she is disabled. She is not capable of many things, and I don't even think they took that into consideration. She was completely dependent on her parents," her brother said. Detectives did not have any particular theory for Janet's disappearance. There is no way she could have strayed too far. That campground is landlocked. The only way to get out of that campground is the same way you came in, Fabian said, adding, "There is no real cliff you could fall off of, or river to drown in. We believe that somebody took her out, or that she got into a car." Bone fragments and a braid of hair were discovered on August 5, 2018, by a hiker called Amanda Moores, and identified by the Cochise County Sheriff's Office as belonging to Jeanette Castrejon in September 2019. Results from the Tucson Medical Examiner's Office confirmed a match with Janet's DNA. No evidence of foul play was found. The remains were only found about a mile from where Janet was last seen in the campground. Hey, I hope you've enjoyed the story so far. If you do and you want to hear more, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel, and leave a comment down below, as it lets the algorithm know that you like my content and it promotes it to more people. My goal for the channel is to hit 50,000 subscribers, and we're closing in fast, so thank you, and back to the stories. Let me tell you the story of why I'm terrified of Buddhist monks. B17. Part Chinese on my mom's side, from Guangdong/Macau area, southern China. Go to visit great-grandpa for holiday. He is old and not doing well. Almost 100 years old. Lived through more revolutions than I could count. Middle of nowhere China. My great-grandfather lives off maybe 30 miles from the nearest town, and it's only dirt roads. Decide to do some night hiking. I'm not smart. Start walking through the heavy woods when I start hearing this long, ringing tone, like a bell or a chime. Start walking towards it, kind of dazed. Start hearing chanting. There is a break in the forest ahead. I see lights. Get closer. Old trail through the forest, completely canopied by trees. Stop in some bushes. Watch as these 3 monks walk by, ringing these beautiful bronze chimes. Take a step. Stop. Ring. Say something in Chinese. Take a step. Look down the trail behind them. Oh fuck no. A straight line of people stretching as far as the eye can see, completely rigid, in traditional clothes, holding paper lanterns. When the monks chime, they don't take a step. Fucking hop. Not in a normal way. Like something just picked them straight up, move them over a foot, and put them down. Knees don't bend, don't make a sound, anything. See great-grandfather with them, completely blank-faced. Time to leave. Get back to great-grandfather's house. Mom, grandma, and great-grandma are crying outside. Great-grandfather is dead. See the body and everything. In the morning, it turns out that there was a fire in town. Half of it burned down in the middle of the night, and about 147-ish people died. Fuck China. Never going there again. It's kind of sad. My great-grandma passed away about a year ago and left me the property. I can't go back though. That scarred me for life. Hopping ghosts, man. Hopping ghosts. You know, too many of these fucking stories happen at night. I'm sure you're all big tough guys going out in the woods at midnight and not giving a fuck. But personally, I'm quite happy to be behind solid 4 walls in several miles of city by the time the darkness closes in. So, this is one from the bright sunshine. One of the first days where spring starts turning into summer. The city life does begin to get to you after a while, so I decided I would enjoy the sun out in the countryside. Or at least as close as you can get around here. I lived around Leeds at the time, and the whole area for several miles around there is basically a bunch of little towns in the process of becoming one big suburban sprawl. But there is still some nice areas, if you're willing to look around a bit, and can't be bothered to actually make the trip up to the moors. So I'd started off along one of the old canals, but that got a bit samey after a while, so I broke off into some woods. Not much of a path, because technically, I'd passed the real entrance like 10 minutes ago. But fuck it. It's not exactly mountaineering, and beside, I kind of like the off-the-beaten-track feel. Okay, so it's kind of a naturalist hipster thing, but I like finding the nice little spots that nobody else knows about. Anyway, after I've been going like this a while, the trees are actually starting to get pretty thick, so I decided I'd probably better start trying to find my way to the path. So, I started making my way towards some of the clearer areas, and I noticed, something like 50 feet away, a bunch of people standing around, and what looked like smoke. Moving around to get a better look, I could see that they were standing around a barbecue, which on the first nice day of the year, I normally would not give a second thought to. But in the middle of the woods, feeling like a bit more of a badass than usual, I decided to go over and confront them. Or if I'm more honest, probably just ask, hey, you guys alright there? Okay then. As I got closer though, I realized there were a few things beside the location that seemed a bit weird. There were a whole bunch of guys, I think around 5, but I didn't count, and 2 girls with them, all around their late teens, but they did not seem to be joking, or taking the piss out of each other, or shouting, or whatever it is that teenagers around here get up to. They didn't even seem like they were having fun. 1 or 2 of them looked like they were talking, but it was too quiet for me to even hear a murmur, and they all looked pretty tense. And as far as I could see, the only thing that they had with them besides the barbecue and 1 or 2 rucksacks was a large black bin bag. Well, by this point, I was feeling a fair bit less secure in my badassness, and thinking better of my idea, trying to turn half a dozen of the local chavs into upstanding citizens, so I decided to just be on my way. Doing my very best to not look like I was deliberately avoiding them, of course. As I bent my course around to avoid them, one of them pointed, and I noticed a few of them looking over in my direction and saying something. I just tried to keep my head down and gave them a wide berth. My curiosity sort of got the better of me after I was past them though, and I turned around for another quick look before I passed the point where they would be just out of view, just to see if I could puzzle out what was going on. And that is when I saw that two of the guys had left the group and were coming after me. I have no idea who started running first, but fortunately, I still had a fair bit of a head start on them. And, fortunately, my naturalist hipster cred paid off, as I was well used to getting through uneven terrain, something judging from the crash behind me that my pursuers were not. Not that I felt so smug at the time, of course. I was too busy running as fast as I could manage. I probably lost them long before I stopped, but I wasn't ready to waste time turning around until I was well out of those woods. Not exactly a marathon, luckily. There were houses backing up to them after what can't have been much more than half a mile. I thought about going to the police, but then I didn't really have that much to tell them. There were a few people having a barbecue in the woods. Some of them walked in my direction, so I ran off. I think they chased me. Nope, no idea who any of them are. I did go back there though, a few days later. I took it a lot more carefully this time, but of course, there wasn't anyone there after days. I was able to find the spot where they had been though, or around there at least, from where they dumped the burnt out charcoal. Obviously, the barbecue itself was gone, along with the bin bag, and as far as I could say, they had not been stupid enough to drop anything of theirs. The only thing I did find was the charred remains of a wristwatch, buried among the charcoal. 13th of October 2000, Friday the 13th and a full moon. At family cabin, grandfather built it with his father. Doing kid stuff with siblings after dark. Sister runs off while we're playing hide and seek. She gets stuck in barbed wire fence nobody noticed before. Dad takes her to hospital. Everybody else goes into cabin. Eventually, other sister goes to use the bathroom. It's an outhouse that only locks from the outside. Hook and eye latch, not sure why. Common prank was to lock people in while they were shitting. After 20 plus minutes, sister has not come back. She got locked in. That weekend we also found a deer skeleton within a stone foundation on the property. Two intact, and in a place a deer would not be able to reach itself. Part of the woods we played in we called the dead forest. Even in the summer, just dead trees. We built forts, etc. from all the fallen wood. Structures we didn't build show up. Branches broken and stuck in trees way too high for us to reach. Parents eventually buy a different cabin, and we never go back. Pretty tame compared to a real paranormal experience, but I was always confused why they would buy another cabin instead of using the one we had. I wonder if they saw things we didn't.